Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Okay, I've got. Ooh, here we go.
Hello,
Guys,
David.
stay with me. You guys carry on having a conversation. The show has begun, all right? David introduced them and then tell them what's going on, all right?
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was
All right, we're about to go live with one of probably the biggest shows that we've ever done.
I had too many.
I got live coming with you alongside me and my co-host, Dr. David Remay.
My lessons in the street.
I got our ever best friend, Alex Salazar, ex-law enforcement officer, LAPD.
The street. I was getting
But tonight we've got two other former officers coming alongside him. Ex-chief of police, Justin Powers,
change, man. Don't
and ex-police officer from Alabama, Justin Hanners.
just fit.
Tonight we're going to be exposing the truth,
Trying to cope with this living.
unraveling the lie,
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
and bringing to forefront the corruption,
Did my time. I
the inappropriate use of police powers, and some of the best kept secrets
paid for my crime.
in defending the blue line.
My time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than super fraud.
Once again, just want to apologize for the introduction there.
I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's
We've been having a connection technical difficulties.
yeah.
I'll get my words out.
Now sit back.
But we've got an absolutely cracking show lined up for you tonight, right here on Issues Today, live on World Jam Global Radio.
Real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd shoot you up and
Some of these guys can't actually wait to introduce themselves, let me tell you.
you haters.
The opening statements are going on
Don't you just hate it when everybody leaves it to the last minute?
in prison.
But we got some good friends on here today, and we're going to have an absolutely fantastic discussion.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time.
World Jam Global Radio, this is clarity.
Already did my time.
This is an actual special track written for me by none other than my good friend Ronnie Canada.
Paid for my crime.
Track entitled Pay for My Crime.
My crime. Paid for my crime.
We've been having problems with some of the music tracks that we've been playing, absolutely muting the entire 2-hour shows. So we've decided that we'll no longer use any more released material,
This felony.
and we'll only be using originals sent to us directly by artists who want their music played.
Live like
How's
a
that?
ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of
Like this?
in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street.
World Jam
I was
Global
getting
Radio.
money.
This
Life
is
was so
clarity.
sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all.
But we're running out of time, so I got to do this.
Trying to cope with this living.
Oh, and I just got to introduce to you one of my special guests. He is my co-host. He is my shotgun rider. He is my, I suppose, in a relationship, you call him my boo, right? This is Dr. David Remay. Good evening, David.
Hello, Kervin from Connecticut, USA. You hear me all right?
We're hearing you loud and clear, David.
Super. I hear a rocking chair squeaking.
Yeah, it's mine. I forgot to put oil on it this morning, David.
Well, you know, every American knows the miracle drug for every mechanic is WD-40. It's the best lube in the whole world.
I'm going to have to get me some.
WD-40.
I'm going to have to get me some.
Well, you'll find it very nice. Now, let me bring you up to date about what's happening in America. Are you guys there?
We're all here.
Yes,
All right. Well, Donald Trump continues to thump his Republican allies, and they don't know what to do. They see their savior as Marco Rubio, but the Cuban American who got into America because the Cubans have a special law that says if you set foot in America, you're automatically welcomed and can stay legally. Whereas in Mexico, if you come to America, you have to basically go through an astronaut training program and be more pure than the Virgin Mary herself. And I don't know how that can be after having so many children, but that's another issue. Now, the idea of John Boehner resigning as Speaker of the House, 2 heartbeats away from the presidency of the United States of America, and then he wanted to hand it down to his chosen successor, the Californian McCarthy, Kevin, who can't speak by putting 2 words together in a proper format. Is not only a typo, but it's grammar and syntax. Plus, he let the beans out of the bag that Hillary Clinton's investigation was all political. Well, that inflamed the Republican McCarthyites and the other Politburo members in Congress, and they kicked them out. And now they look to Paul Ryan, the vice presidential candidate with Mitt Romney, as their messiah. But he's playing Hamlet, to be or not to be, and no one knows what's going to happen with the Republican cabal in Congress today. And finally, I'd like to bring you up to date on Russia in Syria. Putin has decided to put his big Russian nose into Syria, and I hope he gets it bit off by ISIS. But he's doing it to support his good friend Assad, the mass-murdering, genocidal freak supported by Israel, for the sole purpose that he will not bother Israel about the maintenance, occupation, and illegal stealing of water resources from the Golan Heights, which they illegally annexed in 1981. So, of course, Israel wants to keep Assad, and so Netanyahu flew to Moscow, kissy-kissied with Mr. Putin, and the next day they coordinated an invasion of Syria, ostensibly to fight ISIS, but in fact to fight the American allies there who's trying to get rid of the genocidal murderer and Mossad agent, Mr. Assad. So that's what's happening in the world today from the United States of America.
Thank you very much, David. And as you all know, David is our expert in prosecutorial misconduct. And excuse the noise as my... right, and our next guest tonight is our regular guest on police brutality. We've actually got Alex Salazar. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening, Kervin. Happy to be here for this very special show, along with my good friends, Justin and Justin. You're going to hear some amazing stories. By no means are we anti-police. Rather, these gentlemen are what are setting the standard today in law enforcement. We have numerous whistleblowers, or as Justin Hanners like to say, or rather as Justin, oh my gosh, I'm getting them confused, but one of them likes to say that these are truth exposers. These are men and women that are coming forward, that are breaking the code of silence, and they're basically saying things as they are, as they're going. And as the good Dr. Romay there talked about, there's just so much hypocrisy that's going on in the world, all these stupid little games when we should be trying to work towards peace and to find solutions. Yet we have all these crazy sociopathic individuals who are trying to derail peace and the furtherance of humanity. And so I'm just happy to be here with these people here to try to have a positive show where we can develop solutions and instead of attacking one another. So anyhow, just glad to be here again with you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Alex. I'd like to welcome Alex too. Alex, I'm very glad you follow my Facebook, and I'm glad to keep up to date with all the wonderful and courageous things you're doing in behalf of the liberty in this country.
Absolutely. You, and those who are not in the know, Alex is an ex-law enforcement officer from the Los Angeles PD and has been working towards this issue on whistleblowers and actions against police brutality, and has been a very good friend of ours and a guest on this show on many occasions. And once again, on behalf of Issues Today and the Issues Today team and the World Jam Global Radio fanatics, Alex, we welcome you again tonight. Now Thank you
very much. And Kervin, let me just add here too really quick. It's truth exposers is the word we want to get out. And Justin, I believe it's Hanners. You're the one that talked about truth exposers, my good friend.
Justin Powers.
Justin Powers. Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
We're going to be referring to Justin Powers tonight as JP. All right, because we got two Justins on the show. So Justin Powers.
Why don't we say Powers and Hanners?
Well, let's do
how they used to call them.
Let's do that. If you guys are happy with that, we'll go with Powers and Hanners.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So one of you used to be an ex-chief of police. Which one is that? That's Powers, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Justin Powers, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're about, and why you're here tonight.
First off, Kervin and Dr. Ramey, I really appreciate this opportunity. Alex Salazar, thank you for calling me for this opportunity as well. Justin Hanners, it's a pleasure meeting you. I've met Alex on a personal basis as well. I was a former chief of police in Grand Junction, Tennessee, which is West Tennessee. I exposed a bunch of corruption in West Tennessee, called the DA, the judge, and the sheriff and several other individuals out on corruption. And then I was blackballed basically by the law enforcement agencies for doing so. I tried to bring it to the judge's attention. Nobody would do anything. They were falsifying affidavits and warrants. I got sick of the corruption, so I put my foot down. After I left law enforcement, I went to Afghanistan, came home, worked a stint with the government, and then I decided to open my own private investigations company. And since then, I've had my own PI company.
Fantastic. Well, and tonight you're here on what grounds?
I'm on here to expose the truth. We're really truth exposers. You know, everybody calls it a whistleblower, but it's not really a whistleblower. It's people trying to expose the truth. Because when people hear the word whistleblower, they think of negativity immediately. Oh, that's somebody just trying to tell on somebody else. More or less, this is what we're doing. Is we're trying to expose what's actually taking place, the corruption in law enforcement, etc. They call it the Brothers in Blue and all that nonsense. It's really not a Brothers in Blue. It's either you're with them or you're against them, and there's no in between with law enforcement a lot of the times. And because we're former law enforcement officers, I personally loved being a law enforcement officer, but because I exposed the truth, a lot of people don't, as in law enforcement, do not want to associate with me because I did present the facts and expose the truth.
Okay, well, listen, that's a fantastic introduction, and we are really so looking forward to what you're going to contribute and bring to this show tonight. And we just welcome you on behalf of the Issues Today team, the World Jam Global Radio fanatics, and our listeners right across the universe tonight. Thank you very much, Powers. We're going to go quickly and swiftly right across to Justin Hanners. Good evening, Justin Hanners.
Hey, good evening.
Coming to us live from Alabama.
That's it. Appreciate you having me on, guys. It's great to meet you.
Kervin, I have to interrupt Justin Hammers for 1 second to say something very important.
Go ahead, sir.
Justin, are you listening? Roll Tide!
Woo! Justin,
sorry, I know you're from the plains, but I had to say that.
He can't help himself. But listen, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. I'm a military vet. I was United States Air Force for 4 years active duty. I got out and I started policing at the city of Auburn in 2006, and I was with them for 6 years. While I was in, I saw officers commit crimes, felonies that weren't charged or fired. We had ticket arrest quotas. We were giving out gift cards to officers that wrote the most tickets in arrest. We had officers lying under oath. There was a lot of racial profiling and things, some racial harassment and sentencing. So after working there for several years, I kind of blew the whistle first internally and got a lot of backlash and retaliation. And then going forward from there, I blew the whistle, to all the Alabama Ethics Commission, the Attorney General, the federal EEOC, pretty much anybody that would listen. And shortly after that, I was fired and then went to the media and shared my story. And I had a lot of recordings of supervisors and paper documents to prove my side and things. Filed a lawsuit that was tossed out of court pretty quick. So they just basically said that there's no remedy under law to protect whistleblowers in Alabama unless you're a state employee, and I was a municipal employee. So in a nutshell, that's my story.
Well, wow. Well, thank you very much for that, Justin. And I've been doing just a little bit of research into you, and you've actually been involved in several interviews, especially over the last couple of months, just telling about just about anybody who will listen about your story and what's happening in your journey. But before we move on to everybody else, I just want to stick with you for just a very quick second, because nobody just goes into policing unless it's something that they desire, they want to do. So how do you get to that place where you're doing what you believe to be your dream job? You said you were military, so you came from the military and you went into law enforcement. So as far as you're concerned, it's a career path. You're looking to protect and serve, and you think that you're doing something righteous for your country, beneficial to the people in the community that you serve. How do you get from being so elated of getting that dream job that you've always wanted to do and proud, something that you could be proud of, to get into a place where you just can't take what you're involved with anymore? What was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I got into law enforcement because I believed in it. I I felt like that evil prospers because good men do nothing. And ever since I was a small child, I felt like if I was able to, if I was healthy and fit, I should serve my country. I should be able to give back, and then I should be able to to help out my fellow citizens. Thing. So I came in with very an idealistic view of law enforcement, and then you get in and you find out that it's not really about serving and protecting. It's a lot of stats-driven police work. It's a lot of revenue generation. It's a lot of lies and misdirections and things. So it was really heartbreaking to see. And when you get to that point, you've got the choice that a lot of officers face now, where you can either put your head down and muscle through and get that retirement and get away, or you can silently walk off and find other work, or you can say something and do something about it. So I felt like the only right choice for me was to actually try to expose it. And I swore an oath to serve and protect the citizens of Auburn and the United States. And to me, that also includes against their own government and police agencies when they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So,
wow, thank you,
Justin. Let me jump in. I want to ask something too. I have my view on police corruption, and I think a lot of it is due to the fact that higher ups, that is, political and appointed officials, put pressure on police to have certain results, whether that is to capture a murderer, and if that involved in the old days and even today sometimes framing him or presuming guilt long before it's done to settle down the newspapers and the local community, or increasing city revenue by issuing more traffic tickets than would normally be called for in a more just society. In fact, I frequently call traffic policemen RCs. I say, oh, there's an RC, a revenue collector, because they are revenue collectors to a large extent. And I'd like to ask you, with that in mind, and knowing the lying, I mean, I read about your case being thrown out, and I read that flimsy argument made by the federal judge down there, Albritton, who's part of the establishment. But beside the lying and the cover-ups and the what the police chief, Mr. Powers, said was a cops in blue, it's a tribal mentality. You're with us or you're against us. I don't want to misquote Justin Powers, but I think that's what he said. You're with us or you're against us. This tribal mentality. So ignoring the tribal and the lying and the cover-ups, what role in your mind do the local prosecutor, either municipal or district, I don't know what you call a state's attorney down there, district prosecutor, what role do you think that the professional attorneys have in encouraging or permitting and allowing this type of corruption from the police chiefs all the way down to the lowest traffic cop?
Sure.
And after you answer that, I'd like for Chief Powers to answer the same thing.
Yes. Sure. You said something earlier, and I think it rings absolutely true that it's a top-down problem. 99% of law enforcement are great guys, and they're not happy with where law enforcement is either. This is a problem that victimizes both police and public alike, and it's definitely a municipal top-down, problem. And what I saw, the first time I complained to the chief of police about a ticket quota, our district attorney was present, and I think it's like you said, it's from the politicians in the city to the prosecutors, and then to the top law enforcement officials, whoever they may be in that agency, that are really driving it as a top-down. They look at it like a revenue collector, like you said, like a taxation through citation. So I definitely think that rather than using prosecutorial discretion and picking what they should be focusing on, they focus on petty things that have a good fine that's easy to deal, rather than than worrying about the things that the public worries about that are vital for safety and security. So if that answers the question.
So before Justin Powers jumps in, I'd just like to follow up with one short answer. Do you find that in Auburn, where I presume in the area you have a not a small black or African American population, but maybe not as big as in some of the western counties of Alabama at that same latitude, but do you find that the police were directing these, as you call them, beautifully put, I might say, taxation through citation? Do you find that they were directing this to African Americans and students who do not have the same standing as the white residents and the permanent residents in Auburn have?
Oh, absolutely. And it's more the fact, though, if anything. We were encouraged definitely to go after students. I've got some audio recordings where my patrol lieutenant was basically, well, not even basically, he called them idiots and said, we got a fresh batch of idiots that come in every fall, and we got to stay on them. We got to learn them right. And that we were definitely pushed for the students and also, the minorities, like you said. Those are the people that don't have as big of a voice that complaints aren't taken as seriously. So that's where officers go to get their contacts and to get their pound of flesh for Caesar, as it is. So definitely saw that. And what's more, not only are they targeted more often, but such things affect them more because you're lower income, because you don't have as much money, either because you're a starving college kid or you're a minority on the poor side of town. $161 fine and court costs, that's a lot of serious decisions that month. That's groceries. That might be bills, child support and things. Whereas somebody else that's, the upper end of the income scale, that doesn't impact them as hard. So they're kind of burning the candle on both ends. One, they're getting contacted and fined and cited and arrested more often, but also the fines that are imposed affect them more than it would other people in the populace. So absolutely.
And then just Kervin, so that our English people understand this, listening in Great Britain, what happens is what Justin Powers and what Justin Hammers just said is, so you're a poor black person or a poor white person or a student who's living from pizza to pizza, or in my days, McDonald's to McDonald's.
You were rich then.
Well, I know that when I graduated from the University of Illinois in 1980, I could get 2 hamburgers, french fries, an apple pie, and a Coke for $1.94. That'd be a ATM withdrawal today. But let me say this. When a poor person, black or white, or an elderly person, or a student can't afford that $161, which becomes $200 very quickly, and certainly has no money to hire a lawyer to defend him or herself in court, what happens is frequently they may just let it slip and not pay it. Then a warrant is issued. Once a warrant is issued and they're picked up and they happen to be drinking or smoking something at the same time, or dating a girl who a cop doesn't like because he's black and she's white, and salt and pepper don't go together in that part of Alabama, or in that part of America, rather, then you've got a person involved pretty much in the criminal justice system with that warrant. And from a traffic ticket, it put a person in jail, a criminal justice system, a cycle begins, and that person is never really the same again. Am I right or wrong, guys?
Absolutely spot on. But can I just drop one more question in there before Justin Powers answers? Because you haven't answered yet, have you, Justin?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you did. All right. Well, I'm getting all confused with these Justins now, right? But I'm going to fire this question at you anyway, right? Aren't district attorneys actually considered law enforcement officers as well?
They were kept pretty separate. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, aren't district attorneys considered to be law enforcement officers as well? Is their role not of law enforcement?
It's of enforcing the laws and the statutes of the state in which they serve.
Okay.
Through the court system. You
see, I understand totally what David has just said, because we over here we've got a similar issue over here where
our job as law enforcement officers is to charge an individual. Once we charge the individual, it's the district attorney's job to prove in court that either they're guilty or they're innocent.
Right.
And it's up to the jury is the one that finds them innocent or guilty.
What we have over here now in the UK in particular is a reduction in law enforcement police officers on the streets. They have absolutely escalated the amount of speed cameras that they've got on the motorways and in the localities now, and they are just issuing out tickets willy-nilly and criminalizing drivers as easy targets. And 9 times out of 10, just as what David has just said, it's the poorer ones who can't pay, who cannot afford to pay at the rates because they're given a limited time in which they have to pay it in. It's automatically handed over to a law enforcement officer, a court enforcement officer, who now has the right to come and get this money at a particular rate that they have deemed right, whether you can afford it or not. And if you can't, then you may be jailed, imprisoned, where the fine still stands when you come out of prison and you still have to pay anyway. So drivers are easily becoming criminalized in this country. which is what I consider to be another unfair system. But surely, JP, Justin Powers, as a chief police, you've had to preside over a lot of these issues that you're probably uncomfortable with. Am I right, or were you comfortable with following the protocol that your particular department was asked to go with?
I was comfortable with following our protocol within our SOPs, but at the same time, majority of my bases of my city that I worked was African American. They try to, the politicians or the mayor and them try to say, well, there was more of a white majority, but we also dealt with the outskirts around the city as well, and it was predominantly African American. But I don't think it's I see where Dr. O'May is going with the black and white issue. I don't necessarily see it always as a black and white issue. I see it as it's a true fact that black on black crime is higher than anywhere else, and anywhere else in the United States, black on black crime is the highest. But I don't think that is a African American problem. I think that is a community problem. I think that we need to come together as a community to address it and try to fix it. And I think that, I remember Mayor Giuliani in New York City, he reduced the deaths of African Americans on black crime statistically by a lot of numbers. And what he said, one of his statements was, instead of arresting or 200, he made a statement something about, instead of several African Americans dying, I believe I've saved several African American lives by enforcing more law enforcement officers in New York City. And I think that was very true, because he did make a stance from that point of view. And I think that we need to come together as a community to address a lot of the black and white issues that we're having, instead of pointing fingers, and we just need to come together. I mean, we've seen this with Ferguson. Alex was down there. I was down there. A lot of people everybody's pointing fingers. Well, if we're going to point fingers, we need to find a resolution.
Yes, but Chief, on that point, in Ferguson, the traffic tickets were given primarily, I think, 80% to African Americans. And it was really disproportionate. And if we're going to find a solution, with all respect to you, I'm not going to say with all due respect, I find that shallow, but with all respect to you, I think we have to see what the statistics are. And perhaps, now I'm coming at it from a different point of view, forgive me, but when you say black on black crime is disproportionately higher, yes, maybe black on black violent crime, but crime in America is primarily white on white, and is primarily by financial white-collar people in banks and Wall Street who financially manipulate our markets and money and destroy people's lives. And if you don't remember that, remember back to 2008 and 9 and 10 with all the foreclosures and bankruptcies and 800,000 jobs being lost a month, with more domestic crime increasing, more thefts, more robberies, all because, as Mr. Hammer said earlier, the incentive to commit police offenses comes from the higher echelons of the political echelon and trickles down to the policemen. And as you said, 95% of them want to be very good policemen. But you've got to look at the higher level. And if we focus on the guy who pulls a gun in Walmart, as opposed to the guy who steals $1 billion on Wall Street, I think we're missing the whole point. It's just a different kind of crime, and one that draws immediate blood. But a lot of people jump out of windows also because of financial crimes. So I don't think it's a good idea to kind of separate it in that way. But to get back to the point, the real issue here is, if we want to find a solution, then we have to see where the problems are. And statistics, unfortunately, are the best way for humans to accumulate the data so that we then can create prognosis for bettering the society. I hope that made sense. Forgive me.
No, it does, Doctor, but at the same sense, though, when we deal with a situation, Justin Hanners, Alex Hazar, myself, when we deal with a situation, we're dealing with individuals on the street. We're not dealing with politics on Wall Street. We're law enforcement officers. We're dealing with our community in general. I understand exactly where you're coming from on the tax evasion, et cetera, on Wall Street and the bailouts, et cetera. I understand that. I get it 100%. But that falls more on your federal investigators, as in the Secret Service, the FBI, et cetera. And now they're dropping the ball because there's a lot of politicians that are filling their pockets as well.
Alex, are you still there, Alex?
Yes, and I just want to say this is such an awesome show, very revealing, and I think it's the first time historically that there's ever been such a discussion here among law enforcement with the people. And this is what it's had to have been, as Dr. Romay mentioned, this has to be taken to a higher level. And that much higher level, of course, is recognizing the problem if we, in fact, are going to get to the solutions. And the solution seems to be, well, how do we do it? How do we handle this problem? And the problem as I see it, and I'm sure as my colleagues here have seen it too, it's about racism. Ultimately, it's more than just the statistics or anything like that. Anybody can come up with a bunch of numbers. This is a philosophy. This is a way of thinking. This is a subculture. This is an omerta that these guys take on to become a part of the system. And so what we're looking at here now having to do is developing some sort of paradigm shift, a new way of thinking at looking at this, because there is just so much damn corruption, and humanity, it appears, has lost their soul. And to begin with me, of course, because I came into this world just like everybody else, and this is where I am along with my good friends here. And so I'm happy that we're having this powerful discussion. But I really, truly do believe that this is an issue of racism that the United States has yet to have that talk about, even though we have a black president. And there's all these unique things happening in the world in this particular time period. We're at the 1-year anniversary after Ferguson, and now we're talking about this issue of racism. We're talking about police brutality. The KKK has come out. I mean, there's so many changes that are happening that we finally have to come to the addressing of this issue of racism, that which caused slavery in this country and that killed people, that still continues to kill people, these targeting of minorities and people who are poor. It's a new philosophy. It's a new way of adapting this change into a truly modern world that goes with the present. But yet, as I think it was Hanners that was saying, we want to point the finger, and we have to stop that. We can't be doing that because each and every one of us is sick. We all have issues, but we're living in a world of narcissism where there's so much arrogance, the Facebook age, and very rarely do people want to sit down together and talk. So that's kind of just my little 2 cents here with seeing what I know from my years working at LAPD in the most infamous police station on the planet, a station that they made a movie called Training Day on, that won Academy Award for Denzel Washington, for talking about, how sick some of these people can become. So I'm of the belief that it's definitely about education. We need to get people educated. We need to remove a lot of this ignorance. And most of all, we need to deal with the issue of racism. And I'm praying that the president will hear our cries and that people will finally start looking at this problem for what it truly is.
Now, let me jump in, Kervin. I want to inform the listeners of something that is amazing. And this comes from Auburn, where Justin Hammers was fired for revealing the truth about the revenue collecting as being a priority over traffic safety. And this plays into what Alex, my good friend in LA, said about improving the relationship between the police and the citizens. The city of Charleston just agreed this week to pay over $7 million, $7 million to the family of the man who was murdered there by a policeman in a most brutal way because he ran away from the policeman. Why did he run away? Because the police had instilled fear in the citizenry. Now that $7 million would take about 100 years of revenue from Auburn to pay that fine. So let me say that in Auburn, they were collecting when Justin Powers was there, $87,000 a year in traffic fines in 2008 and 9. This last year, the city was budgeting $75,000. This last year, they budgeted $45,000, and they will probably collect even less. Now, while they have budgeted roughly 50% of what they did 5 years prior, even though money has gone down in value, so really it's even less than 50%, the traffic violations have decreased from 832 tickets to only 369, with an increase in the safety of drivers, the reduction of accidents, and far better, according to the city council member, Dr. Bill Kervin of Auburn, with no increase in accidents, we have seen an improvement of the relationship between the police department and our citizens. So just giving up a little measly $40,000 a year versus a $7 million settlement in Charleston and other cities, you can see Auburn has made a significant change in its policy that is resulting, according to Lieutenant Victor Picaro, a significant difference in the relationships down there. And that is in no small measure the result, I would say, of a very brave young officer who took it on the chin and did what was right and revealed the truth and made that city, even though it didn't acknowledge the problem, correct the problem.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
Well, I appreciate you saying so. That means a lot.
And I think we need to take our hat off to Justin Hanners, because it would have been 1 second, David. It would have been quite easy for someone like Justin Hanners, in the position that he was in the area community that he was in, to actually hide behind his shield and just be one of the many that went along with what was taking place. But he didn't. He stood out. He stood up, right. and he stood up and he fought. And because of that fight, changes have been made.
I want to ask Chief Powers, if Mr. Hanna as Officer Hanna had worked for you, and he brought that to your attention, and you knew you were under stress by your city government, city manager, whoever rules you in that Tennessee land, a mayor, I don't know if you have a mayor or a city manager, but whoever dictates to you, hires and fires you, what would you have done if he brought that to your attention and you honestly weren't aware of the connection as clearly as he became aware of it, being on the front line, so to speak? How would you have reacted?
Me and him would have sat down. We would have looked at it. I would have looked at the evidence as well, and then we would have brought it to the district attorney and the state attorney general. We would push it up through the politics and our chain of command as far as we can. And then if we had to, we'd expose it. I mean, I understand exactly where he's coming from. I just attached a sheet to the messaging block of a quota that when I used to work for Somerville Police Department in Somerville, Tennessee, they had a quota. And the quota said by the chief that we had to write 3 citations per day. So I understand exactly where he's coming from. I understand where you're coming from, Alex. I understand and respect where you're coming from on the Ferguson situation as well. You had a law enforcement agency that was majority white and a population that was majority African American. So I understand exactly where you guys are coming from. I'm not disputing that there's an issue with black and white, with officers, etc. All I'm saying is we need to find a solution to the problem. And Doctor, if you don't mind, I'd like to answer the questions that you asked me originally to Justin Hanners.
Yes.
The district attorney in the state of Tennessee, we call them district attorneys. The district attorney is elected, voted in by the people, and they have a district. Like I've lived under the 25th Judicial District, and our district attorney is Mike Donovan, General Mike Donovan. The district attorney basically is the end-all, say-all. And what they do is they plead the majority of the cases because most district attorneys are doing nothing but trying to get money for their drug funds. Say if it's a drug charge, all they're trying to do is trying to please somebody out to get the max amount of dollars for the agency and for the drug fund. Because if somebody pleads it, that means that they found them guilty and increases their record. And then you have the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, what a lot of people do not know, only work at the discretion of the district attorney's office. So say there is corruption, like I've exposed, I bring it to the TBI. The TBI will not investigate it because it's against the DA, and the DA tells them not to investigate it in my situation. And then the question is where is the oversight? There is no oversight. You have a district attorney that is basically, he has his own Gestapo. If he doesn't like you, he's going to investigate you and try to find something against you.
But you're chief of police, right? So, yes. As chief of police, is there not another place that you can take it outside of the realm of the district attorney?
I can take it to the state prosecutor, or excuse me, to the U.S. District Attorney's office. I took it to the FBI. The FBI said they weren't interested. The FBI basically told me on the down low per se that they do not get involved unless it has to do with serious implications of money. They don't like being involved unless the FBI knows that they're going to make an X amount of dollars from the investigation. And I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth.
Wow.
Until the Ferguson situation occurred,
wow,
the DOJ they weren't investigating half.
So let me just stop you there a second, Powers, right? Justin Powers. Let me just stop you there a second. A moment ago, Alex brought in the racism issue. Prior to that, David had raised the racism issue, and you came in and said, never mind pointing the fingers, we need to find a resolution, right? So how can we find a resolution when your everyday black man and woman on the street who is arrested for misdemeanors, serving long-term sentences, and some of them even losing their life, right, are seeing, big state crimes being committed that can't be prosecuted? How does the scales of justice balance where we're going to get people to understand that certain crimes are more punishable than others when they can see that the misdemeanors that they're committing in comparison to some of the large scale crimes that are being committed against the state are going unchallenged? How do we balance that out?
I would be ignorant to tell you that I knew the answer because I don't. Okay, but what I do know that we need to elect new politicians first off. That's one of the biggest changes. We really need to look at who we're electing in these offices as well. I mean, I don't know the solution. I think that we need to sit down and we need to brainstorm a solution. Like in any business, we brainstorm a mission statement. What are we going to provide? We need to do the same thing when it comes to policing in the United States.
And so that's why both Alex and David came with what they came with, because the bottom line is until we actually start looking at what the problem is, we're never going to get to a point of solution.
That is a big problem. It's going to be hard to come to a solution, but we have to come to a solution instead of keep pointing the finger. We have to come to a solution. Do I agree with you that more African Americans are locked up? Yes, absolutely. Do I agree with Justin Hanners when he says that they're going after lower income individuals? Absolutely. I see more low income individuals in court than I do see higher income individuals. But here's also the other thing. Who are they targeting when they have these quotas? They're targeting violators, but they're targeting who? The working day man and woman. The working day man and woman is who? Majority of us minorities, who's the working day man and woman. They're the ones that are lower income because here in the United States, you honestly, we used to, I remember in the 90s, my parents would talk about the middle class. Today I look around in the United States and I see the upper class and the lower class. I see no middle class. And as a business owner, that's all I see. And I do see that most of the people that they are writing citations to arresting are who? The lower class of society, because the lower class of society, honestly, are the working day man and woman. They're the ones that are going up and down the road every single day trying to make a dollar for their family.
Chief, I'd like to let me jump in real quick. I think that we can't move forward without really stressing again, and Alex, I think you'd like to hear this too, the role of the prosecutor. Basically, what the chief has just said is the prosecutor is like a man with a Gestapo. No one is over him. The Texas Bureau of Investigation won't do anything without his permission.
Tennessee.
The chief of Tennessee. That's same in Texas probably. And the chief is a chief of police, a trained law enforcement officer with a military background, trained in legal and law enforcement, and a prosecutor is some lucky-ass lawyer who's got a nice face, gets himself elected, puts on a badge, and suddenly he has more power than all the police chiefs and all the judges. Because even if a judge dare go against the prosecutor will start investigating the judge, or bring up that the judge's son uses marijuana, or his wife overcharged her credit card, or she wrote a bad check. But the prosecutor will find something. He will then blackmail that judge, and that judge will do whatever he wants. And if he doesn't do that, then the prosecutor will go to the State Ethics Commission, where all of his lawyer buddies sit, and he'll have the judge thrown off the bench if he has to, or he'll have an ethics investigation open, he'll leak it to the newspaper, and that judge is finished. So a prosecutor in those southern states has so much unchecked power that he is in effect a Gestapo leader, not a mafia leader, but a Gestapo leader over the liberties of Americans. And when a professional, trained police officer and a chief bring honest allegations of crime by political figures to that prosecutor, and he shuts it down for financial, economic, and political reasons, there is a problem of misconduct at the highest levels. And the only solution to that will be to bring a check and a balance on those elected officials and do like North Carolina did, put the state attorney general over them and give him the power to pull them out of office and put them in jail like they did in the Duke University case. But as long as they say they answer only to the people, claiming some type of a modern divine right of kings, there will be no justice in those southern states.
That's correct. I agree.
You know,
well, I think,
what do you think? What do you think, Alex?
You know, man, this is just, I'm right here. I'm just listening and taking in all this information here, these different viewpoints. And you're right on the money here, Dr. Romay, as always, with your analysis of the situation. But as you mentioned earlier, you know, it's taken this to a higher new level. And I'm not going to stop saying that the issue here is racism. We need to look at that as a whole. I noticed that during our conversation here, the word Gestapo was used a couple of times by one of the Justins and also by you a few minutes ago. And really, it is a Gestapo system where there's this feeling of superiority, and this feeling of superiority doesn't just transcend through the whites, but also Latino, Black, Asian officers, or whatever. And so we're looking at a unique subculture, a way of thinking that has existed, that has pervaded for the ages. This past year, when I was in Selma for the 50th anniversary, I saw that things really hadn't changed down there in Alabama, much from the shanty towns of the 30s and 40s, and of course during that amazing civil rights era, where Martin Luther King with John Lewis, you know, they were beaten up down there just for simply crossing a bridge to try to express their feelings, you know, of wanting to be treated like human beings. And so now we're caught up with all these statistics and trying to find ways of trying to understand the Black man's experience here in the United States of America in a way that, you know, isn't made a mockery. I will say we have come to a unique time where people do have rights, but now we see that really that these rights aren't being respected as they should be. And so, you know, we need to try to understand and keep on thinking about what was Dr. King trying to do himself here? What was it that got him killed? What was it that got Malcolm killed? What is it that has gotten a lot of people executed because they chose to speak up against white supremacy and for what it stands for here in the world? And so for me, my LAPD experience was one as such where I became a Nazi, part of the Gestapo system in trying to do what the system commanded me to do without me questioning, because of course I was getting a paycheck and I had adopted this philosophy through the military and also through of course now the training of the police departments. And so really it is a mindset that we need to continue working on so that we can work with the communities as Chief Power said, and for us to really get in there with the people and say, hey, we're sorry. I look to the example of Montgomery, Alabama Police Chief Kevin Murphy, who came forward and he apologized to Congressman John Lewis for the way that they had treated him. That is the type of man, that is the type of person that we need that can acknowledge this racism and say, hey, I'm sorry, without not acknowledging what has happened here historically. It is only until then that we can have this kind of forgiveness, this atonement perhaps, that we can try to achieve this peace that is ever so elusive for us. But I think that, if we can talk about this without, all the anger and just, pissed off rhetoric, we can definitely make a difference here.
I've got a question. I've got a question from one of our listeners, and she wants to know this. She says, hey, if you can squeeze it in, ask about why Miranda rights are treated as a joke and TV stuff rather than what I learned in pre-law, which was that it was an important point of our rights, not just for big crimes, but for all crimes. Miranda rights we're talking about now.
Yeah, let me answer that question. This is Alex Salazar. What happens with the Miranda rights is the officer can lie, of course, and say that you said something else. And basically, the officer has the ability to circumvent and to fabricate whatever scenario he wishes to do. Dr. Romay mentioned the situation about Walter Scott in South Carolina, where they got $7.5 million for the killing of this man and shooting him in the back. But it was more than just that. This man lied, and he fabricated that Mr. Oh gosh, what was the guy's name again? The one who got shot in the back.
Walter
Scott. Yes, Walter Scott. You know, I mean, I'm still blown away by how callously this officer went and he got his taser and he planted it on this dying man if he wasn't already dead, you know, to set it up. But this is the type of crap that has been going on for the longest time, and so that's why Miranda doesn't matter. Okay, it has no bearing on anything really, because the officer has that power, that control that is told to him by the system that you're going to cover your ass and you're going to do things by the book, but yet, you know, shit happens out there. And instead of the officer sometimes just saying, okay, I'm going to do the right thing, report it, what really happened, you know, well, I shot this guy by mistake, I let my anger get to me, then it becomes something else here. You know, had that officer said that, well, you know, maybe it would be the first time someone had actually been honest and said the truth, instead of all these fabrications where the police officer and the departments and the systems are all always correct.
Okay. And
well, I'd like to ask Alex and also the Justin Powers and also Justin Hammers. Maybe Hammers, you'd like Officer Hammers, you'd like to answer this first. I'm Jewish, and the way we do is the junior people answer first, so the senior people get to think of all their wrongs and get to look good. So let me start this way. You know, at the end of World War II, the Americans did not accept, well, I just took orders as an excuse. The people who committed the crime paid the price. Oh, well, unfortunately, they didn't pay it enough because of Russia. But anyway, they paid the price. But what we did was say, no, it's not just going to be the officers. It's going to be the whole ideology. So the Nazi Party itself was indicted as a criminal organization. And the leaders of the Nazi Party, even if they had never shot a person in their lives or tortured a person, like Adolf Eichmann, who was hanged in Jerusalem in 1962, he never shot anybody, but he was part of the apparatus. And it seems to me, getting to what the chief said, and Alex has said many times, until we indict the system, instead of people who shoot an individual or who beat an individual or who give a traffic ticket unnecessarily, we're never going to solve the problem. Absolutely. The entire system,
Bravo. Keep speaking.
That's the one. That's the one.
We need to indict the law enforcement system that teaches officers and rewards officers who are cooperative for lying under oath every single day in our liberty-filled nation, until district attorneys quit rewarding officers for lying so they can get a conviction that will make their reelection easier. There is no solving the problem.
And that's why justice reform has got to be the way forward in the United States of America, because the justice system as it sits right now is absolutely useless to the people who...
Well, Kervin, this is Alex, let me just say something here, because as Dr. Romay here just mentioned, there doesn't appear to be a solution in sight. Yet at the same time, I believe that there is, because we have never had so much attention before on the issue of racism in the United States of America. And so we really, truly do need to press for the president to talk about what's going on in this country, and not just here, but in the world. The world is watching the United States for how we're going to decide to treat our fellow man. Are we going to become another Beirut or Lebanon or West Bank, where we start killing our people? Because that's what's next, and that's what appears to be happening.
The police are already killing the people, mainly blacks.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And people are getting very angry, and it's at that verge here of there being another blow-up, another Ferguson. Powers was there. I was there. We saw how ugly it got. It's very scary. And there's cities all over the country that are getting ready to blow up just like this. And the United States government has been sitting on its white supremacy butt and not doing anything about it. I was involved in a case where a young man was killed and beaten to death by known officers in a Northern California town in which I was doing a case. And basically, I went to the FBI to try to report what was going on, because there was some really terrible, shady things. And I don't need to go into it and tell this crazy story about cops killing people, because this does happen everywhere too. But just getting to try to talk to an FBI agent and getting some kind of interest was totally null. It never happened. I gave him my information, and I gave him people to talk to that would explain this crazy conspiracy. I didn't really want it coming from me. I wanted him to hear what was happening, on how there was this whole cabal of officers in this small town that were out there framing and killing people. And there's places like this. Like I said, as we speak, I'm not going to, say that or paint all police departments with a broad brush, but I mean, there's a lot of them out there that have become their own little fiefdoms, as Powers said, out there, where they're controlled by the DA, and you can't go outside of the box. You have to stay inside of the box, not to attract any attention whatsoever. So again, it comes to dealing with the subculture, this omerta, this code of silence stuff that has been going on for the ages. The federal government has been historically the problem. I give kudos to the current FBI director, James Comey, because he did talk about that we need to acknowledge the racism issue back in February. And if we can also remember Eric Holder, the former United States Attorney General, in the beginning, when he tried to talk about racism, and basically he said that the United States was a nation of cowards when it came to talking about that subject. And the president got on him and told him, hey, I just got in office. What do you want to do? Get me killed here talking about this stuff? But, it's an issue that Obama has to accept now, the president, because, this country's about to blow up. It's not going to do any good if he goes out of office and he hasn't addressed this issue and really met with the people to discuss what's going on. There is a segment out there, like what we saw in Oregon here yesterday, that hates black people, and especially these gun-loving toting idiots, that disrespected him and basically said, no, we want to have our guns. Basically, so they can continue trying to hope that they're going to meet some sort of psychopath that's going to go into their schools so that they're ready to kill them. I mean, what are you going to do? Well, walk around the universities, the schools with AK-47s because you don't know who's going to snap next? This is stupid. This is not what this world should be and how it was designed, I believe. And so it's going to take a while for us to, I think, acknowledge the depth, the just how crazy down the rabbit hole this situation goes. And so I applaud all of you for this beautiful conversation that we're having.
Okay, listen, Alex, when we spoke on police brutality and a few other issues on several shows, well, I remember on one particular show, and I can't remember which actual one, but you spoke about institutionalized racism, which you saw and experienced in the police force itself, and you said it was just indicament of the police force everywhere you went, and then that's in Los Angeles, right? And now you've got Justin Hanners, who is in Alabama, and in part of the stuff that he states, he said we had officers calling black people Mondays, and they said that was because everyone hates Mondays. He also said that one of the things that he spoke about to Internal Affairs was blacks and Hispanics getting jail time for stuff white college kids were getting minimum fines and counseling for. Now, that's the same kind of, if you've got that going right across the state, because, we've got 3 officers here from 3 different states, and I don't think either one of you can tell me that that's not what you've seen as a repetition within the area and the communities that you've served. Now, Justin, in your particular community...
Oh, really quick, Kervin, really quick, let me just say something here. You just described, by the way, institutional racism, my friend. Okay, what you just said, that is exactly what is happening out there, and that is what we're seeing here with these situations of where you just do whatever you want. And so what we need to do is we really do need to attack this insular culture, because that is how these officers are being trained. You have the Los Angeles Police Department, it's one of the nation's largest, top, and most highly respected departments. It was the focus for the program Adam 12 and Dragnet. Just a couple days ago, one of the Dragnet, Adam 12 actors, Martin Milner, passed away. He was the one that played one of the white officers, and he was the face of the LAPD along with his partner, Officer Malloy. And so this was supposedly the ideal officer. He would go out there, he would help people. But really, they didn't talk about, at that time when it was going on, the LA Watts riots that had happened where they had beaten the crap out of people. It was more of a propaganda tool here to try to paint the white man, in this case LAPD, one of the most respected institutions, as a good department and not racist for what it was. As Hanners mentioned, they use the word Mondays. We had the word fun, the acronym Fun People. And I think I mentioned it on the show what that meant, that there were these secret code words and talks to describe the contempt and the hatred for the black person, the African American, and in his case they use Mondays. Oh, nobody likes Mondays. All right, well, that's pretty chicken shit right there. How they would use that, and supposedly it's supposed to be funny. But where it got really toxic and ugly is when they used the acronym FUN, which is fucked up nigger, and that's how that N word here, which continues to be a part of law enforcement vernacular and these undercover racists, and even into these officers themselves, like myself, because I became a racist. And that's right, I'll say it, and I've said it before too, that I became brainwashed, and I thought I was doing the right thing because I wanted to serve my country. And I can only acknowledge now those things that I did to try to understand what the heck happened to me. That does not remove my responsibility for the things that I did, yet I acknowledge them as these gentlemen, I imagine, are too, and as other officers who really want to break the code of silence, they have to talk about this phenomenon also. It's not about pointing fingers, oh, well, you did this or you did that. It's definitely not about that. It's rather acknowledging this problem. Yeah, man, we got racism issues, okay? Johnson over there keeps on using the N-word, or he's saying Mondays, or he's calling the person coon, or whatever crazy, word of the day that they come up with. I mean, cops are creative to hide their anger. I remember on the tickets we were told to put a little circle and then a little dot in the middle for us to remember people that were assholes so that we could fuck them over in court. And that's what they did, when, because you'd be giving tickets, you wouldn't remember everybody exactly, but that was supposedly the symbol to help you remember how to treat a person. So again, for me, this is all something here that's not just happening with LAPD, the most highly respected police department on the planet, but it's happening in small town Auburn, Alabama, or Tennessee, these little tiny towns, this mentality of arrogance and that we can do no wrong, and if you don't shut the fuck up, we're going to make sure you disappear. That's what's been going on for the ages.
Can I interject for just a second?
Yeah, was that Hannah's or Powers?
Powers. Can I interject for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I understand where Alex is coming from, and I got a perfect case for that. I'm very, 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 very good friends. Actually, I call her my second mother. Her name is Brenda Woods, and she's out of Bolivar, Tennessee. And Brenda has been an activist for a long time, especially in the community. And she got charged for bringing African-American minorities, and she's an African-American, to the polling booths. And because she was trying to run for election, and she was a avid about outspeaking against the same issues we're talking about right now, the local community and the DA went after her and prosecuted her for misrepresentation of votes, trying to get people that were felons to vote. They didn't have no evidence. They brought three felons in her court, and it was proven that they brought three individuals that had felonies in on her case, and they testified against her. And in open court, they said the DA told us if we testify against her, he'll drop our charges, and he also gave us $150 apiece. And this is an issue, and she was trying to better her community. And she's already won one appeal, and she just went to another appeal, and now it's going to the Supreme Court. And I'm very good friends with her, and I associate with her all the time, and me and her do civil rights work together. But this is a problem, and I do see exactly where Alex is coming from on that situation. And Brenda, and I love her to death, but she has had an upward battle with the same DA that I had the issues with. Back to the Miranda rights. After I exposed everything in the media, the DA told the judges, and the judges signed a letter that I wasn't allowed to arrest anybody because even though I was the chief of police, because they said my credibility was ruined because I went against them on them falsifying affidavits. And who are they to judge my credibility? And even the Post Commission, the Police Officer Standard Training Commission for the state of Tennessee, said they can't question your credibility. You have law enforcement powers to arrest. Nobody can do that to you. And that's exactly what happens is you have DAs that become Gestapos. You have judges that become Gestapos. And the problem we have is all these people are elected individuals. They can be outed. But what we need to do is we need to come together, go into these lower income areas, pull these folks out and say, hey, you're going to get out and vote. We need you to vote. Vote, 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 vote. You know, that's the power of democracy. And it's very sad, though, and it's very, very sad that you see. I know we had an election not too long ago in a town of like 15,000 people, only 6,300 people came out and voted. I mean, and that's how people keep getting reelected, because people think that they have their voting rights don't matter, so they don't get out and vote. Well, I've served 14 and a half years, almost 15 years in the military. One thing I do every time is I go out and vote. That is my right as an American to vote. I'm going to vote every chance and every possibility I have. And I think people need to get out. They need to vote. They need to get different people in there. The same judge that was in this case with me, he turned around and he was not only the General Sessions judge, but he was also the city attorney for the city that I worked for. So he told my mayor that they needed to dismiss me because I went against the judge, the DA, and everybody else for falsifying information. I wrote the Board of Professional Responsibility for the state of Tennessee. He had to give up his position because he was also the judges for the small towns for traffic court and the General Sessions judge, and he was the attorney over these cities and making these decisions as well. And it was a huge conflict of interest.
Well, let me ask you: Did the newspaper in your town, Chief Powers? I noticed that Justin Hammers had a huge amount of Auburn newspaper coverage over his disputes and cases. Did you have any newspaper coverage in reference to your issues?
Yes, we had the Amelia from the Bolivar Bulletin, Roy Hornsby from the Bolivar Bulletin wrote about it. Then the WBBJ TV out of Jackson, Tennessee, they came down, did an interview, an entire segment on it, but they weren't allowed to air it. And what I found out is the DA was friends with one of the co-owners of the company.
That's where I was going. I'm sorry.
They didn't air it. They wouldn't air it. So WMCT, WREG, all out of Memphis, Tennessee, came out because there was no political influence, and they're the ones who really exposed it. There is video clip on WREG and WMC-TV where the news anchor went to the DA, asked the DA if there was a letter saying that my arrest authority was removed, and he said, and his comment from his office was he never knew of such a letter. A week later, the letter was exposed, and it was predated to that interview. It was signed by the district attorney's office.
I just want to come in here and I'm loving this. This is an absolutely fast-moving and really educational and informative show. But I don't want to move off the racism issue just yet. I want to go back just a little bit, guys. We've got three officers online, Justin Powers, Justin Hannes, and Alex Salazar.
Go ahead.
No, let me just finish this now. We're going to move on, I would imagine, because I've got something else to bring to the table very shortly, right? But here's where it's at, right? Because, and this is not aimed at you, Justin Powers. You're a chief of police, so you'd be in a better position to deal with what the likes of the Alex Salazars and the Justin Hannes would bring into your station. So until as long as black people individually can see that the way that they're dealt with, the way that they're handled, the way that they're arrested, the way that they're prosecuted, the way that they're jailed, the way that they're treated is different, right? You'll never be able to move the issue of racism off the table, right? Because that's the one thing that holds that issue closely guarded to that table is the fact that it's evident, absolutely evident, that people can see that black people in particular, not just in the United States of America, we've seen it here in the UK too, how they are treated through the entire arrest and prosecutorial process, right, is what makes it stand out so blatantly clear that racism is first and foremost right at the front of what the police officers are doing with their duty. Now, I want to go on to... I need Justin Hannes to come in here because you quoted... These were your quotes that I was quoting earlier on about Mondays and the Hispanics and the blacks being treated differently to the white college kids. How evident was that for you on the streets where you were?
It was, every shift I was on, it was the same kind of talk. Every shift might have its own different code words and stuff, but really the department was divided along black and white lines. You saw a lot of blacks in power trying to make sure that blacks moved up in the chain, and then whites trying to move up. And it was almost like they're competing for those few power slots to protect their own interests. So there's a lot of tension even within the department. But, with Alabama passed an immigration law that was trying to crack down illegal immigrants, we saw a lot of officers then going after illegal immigrants to get their quotas. What they would say is, if you can stop an illegal immigrant, you can get your whole quota in one stop. They want to have a driver's license, they want to have a, insurance, and whatever food violation you got them for. That's 3 tickets for one stop. And like I said, racial experiments, the racial disparity sentencing, we saw that a lot in sports where, white college kids or other people in the community, things would get minimum fines and counseling, but minorities getting charged with the same thing, but up from jail. Like I said, it was pretty evident to me enough that I brought it up to internal affairs and things. But if I can speak to a solution real quick, that's one thing we keep reaching out. But we're at a crossroads in this country, and it's not the first time we've been here. We've had a lot of missed opportunities and chances for connections in our country between whites and blacks. And what we're seeing now through social media and a lot of this negative police attention is that the white community is now seeing through social media and saying what the black community has been saying for a long time, that the police are out of control, there's no accountability, there's no justice for a lot of us and things. And so you've got two sides that are agreeing on the same thing. But then you got, the Black Lives Matter movement with a lot of criticism from white people. And you got also now a lot of officers like myself and Chief Powers and, Alex that are coming out and saying, hey, there's something wrong with law enforcement. So we're at a point in this country where we have the lower income whites, we have lower income blacks, and we've got the police officers all saying that there's a problem in law enforcement and that it needs to be changed. So, we have the majority, but there's just no reaching across the aisles. And we can't look for a top-down, government solution to make that happen. We as individuals, we as communities, we as churches have to reach out across the street and take our neighbor of a different race and say, hey, I stand with you on this. We might not agree about, everything, but we don't have to. We can both agree that this is wrong. And the greatest minority in this country and in the world is the individual. And if we can take care of the individual's rights, we can take care of everybody's rights equally. We have a nation where we have 4 or 5% of the world's, population, but 25% of the world's prison population. And, 44% of that is black. And if we could focus less on these victimless crimes, if we can focus less on, stat-driven police work, the revenue generation, if we can get back to the only job of government and the only job of police is to protect the rights of the citizens, protect them and their property from other people, not to protect them from themselves, not to get the guy that smoked, in his house, locking him up because we're there for a noise complaint or whatever,
So
go ahead.
Yeah, and the next easiest target for the police, apart from the race issue, is a poor issue. Right? I want to just move on to the poor issue. Now, first of all, Alex, a good friend of ours, Charlie Grapsby, wants to send out his greetings to you tonight. He's online listening to the show as we speak out there in America.
Hey, Charlie.
Right? Charlie's a great friend of ours, and he's got a great story to tell himself. And he's not black, by the way. He's white, and a very good friend of ours who's also been treated very unfairly by the police. And ourselves and Charlie and even Dr. Romay, we're also supporting another young lady who, and I want to bring this case to the front, and just as police officer, I just want you to get your view on it. Now, here's a lady who's been working as an undercover journalist, and she spots something that's going on that's quite not right in Florida, right under her nose where she lives. Right, and she's taken video recordings, she's taken photographs, and she's filmed the police who are coming onto a site of a known paid informant who is also a meth dealer and a pimp to underage girls. And she cannot understand how come the police is allowing him to get away with this. And anyhow, on one particular night, they spotted her filming them, and then they've gone and stopped her, claiming that she's got a damaged taillight, which turns out not to be damaged at all, treats her in an absolutely horrendous way, arrests her, and then dumps her 10 miles from home, having confiscated her keys, phone, and vehicle to walk home for 10 miles at night after midnight. Now, is that something that you think, because this is not the job of an officer, this is the job of a whole station. Somebody allowed that to take place. Do you think that's a right way to treat an individual who has got no criminal record whatsoever?
Yeah, let me just tell you, that can happen to anyone. We look at the case of Kelly Thomas out here in California, a schizophrenic man, where the officer who told him these fists are about to fuck you up, Officer Manuel Ramos, in describing how he was going to kill this person, which he did, him and his partner. And so, again, we're dealing with this on such a sociopathic level here now, my friend, that's what we really need to look at it as, because this is happening everywhere. Okay, it's not just with this woman here. This is happening everywhere, and unfortunately, we know the police is able to sometimes paint people as being, don't you know, crazy, or if they're very smart, like a person like with Charlie Graspy, for example, who knows a lot about the law, knows how to go get research documents, and is just very much up on knowing his rights. He becomes the target of a malicious system that is designed to make him look like he has a problem with law enforcement. And yes, he does, because he knows that there is so much corruption out there that it needs exposing, yet the system is self-protected. The FBI refuses to get involved in many of these matters. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the issue that we're dealing with, and also especially with white supremacy that is directly behind all this Gestapo like fascist behavior that is destroying this country of ours, because there is a superiority mindset. And so, I mean, that's just my little take there on what I wanted to say, as to how I see that situation.
Former Chief of Police Justin Powers. So you're presiding over a station, and somebody brings in an individual, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, but they haven't. How much authority does the chief have over how far his officers can take a case?
All his officers can investigate the principles of the case, what actually happened. They need to have probable cause to make the arrest, and that's one huge thing that law enforcement officers have trouble understanding, the difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. So they have to have probable cause to make the arrest. I would have them, investigate it, see what the totality of the circumstances. And if I feel as though that the case has some questions about it, what I always did personally is I'd go talk to the assistant district attorney and present him the facts or her the facts and say, what do you think? Because we know what the law states, but, you also have to put in, there's always anomalies to situations as well. And that's what I would do. But in the case of this young lady that you were talking about, that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. And that's absolutely wrong. They should never let her walk home. They should never have stopped her because she was investigating something. But does that happen? Yes, every day.
It wasn't just that. It goes actually far deeper than that. They spent several over 20 minutes before they approached her. I think it was around 17 of them that had surrounded her car. None of them had identified themselves as officers. She then got on the phone and she called 911. And after they decided that they were going to arrest her, the eventual charge was abuse of 911, which was not the original reason why they stopped her in the first place. She only called 911 because she was in fear of her life. She'd been surrounded by 17 people in unmarked vehicles who had their hands on their gun. She may well have assumed that they were officers, but not one of them approached her and addressed themselves as an officer for over 20 minutes while she was on the phone, and they told her to hang up, and if she didn't hang up, they were going to arrest her. But by that time, she was a person who was known to have panic attacks, suffers with anxiety. When she tried to explain all of that, it was very similar to almost Sound Your Bland standard, where they just didn't care. And the bottom line is, once that goes into the station, I suppose the direction that I'm going with this, once this comes into the station, the officer brings this person into the station. Does the chief officer, does the chief of the police, does the head of that particular station, does he not have a duty to look over this case and say, oh, by the way, what are you guys doing here?
What he should have done is he should have never allowed his officers to act that way, first off. And if they did act that way, do an investigation. And if it found to be true, they should either be dismissed or suspended. Or I would say dismissed personally, but they should definitely be suspended without pay.
So how about if I throw into the mix the people that she's actually investigating are reported, this is an officer in particular, is reported to be the murderer of 2 individuals whose bodies were found on his ranch. By the way, that they're still not investigating.
she needs to take it to the federal levels if she can.
I mean, we are working on this case as we speak, as a group of people, and there's quite a few people involved in trying to uncover the truth on this and support this young woman where she's at. But we've done stuff. We've actually contacted the particular station. We've contacted their PR man and all. We've sent them messages, and they've blocked us on their Twitter accounts and all sorts of stuff now. But
She has the right. She has the right to ask for an appearance before the board of aldermen during a city council meeting. She ought to go in there and expose the truth in the city council meeting, bringing it to the public's attention as well.
Do you know, I have a video recording of the paid informant telling the undercover journalist who the murderer was. We have this. We actually have all of this recording. And I suppose the police are fully aware of it because they confiscated a camera, they confiscated her phone, they confiscated her house keys as well as her truck, and have left her in fear of leaving her home because she doesn't know if when she leaves her home who's going to try and come in and plant what. Now that's got to be of significant concern for any law enforcement officer or officers or station who would actually support an officer who would carry out that form of action.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's wrong by all accounts. I mean, I don't know the perfect answer to that, but I would say that they need to be dismissed, and they definitely. I would look into charging those officers if personally criminally charging them.
Well, I don't know where we're going to go with this. I'm throwing it in here because I've got 3 police officers on the line, and I felt like I needed to support my friend. It's somebody that we all actually have to keep eyes on. She's actually disabled. She suffered with PTSD as well after being raped. She was actually involved in a very serious accident, which caused her to be disabled, and the accident was caused by a SWAT team on call who smashed into her car and left her disabled. So she has every reason to be in fear of the police and things like that. So again, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just really feeling it for her at the minute, and she's getting very little help.
Kervin, let me transition a little bit, make a non sequitur here to Justin and Auburn, Justin Hammers. Tell me, Justin, in your own words, knowing that you acted, as has the chief and Alex and others, courageously and honestly, believe in your country, you've served in the Air Force.
Hello?
You did what you had to do. Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, we're all here.
I hear you now.
You did what you had to do, and now you've gone through all the rigmarole and the kind of BS, so to speak. I don't have Alex's courage with my tongue, so I'll say BS. But you went through all of this horrible activity to bring out the truth, and now you're standing federal judge in Alabama. And he basically says to you, you're a liar. You had bad performance. You've been counseled before. You've made this up as a revenge. Everything you're saying is not true. And you're a liar. And the case is dismissed. Tell me at that moment how you felt personally as a policeman and about the country you serve with so much honor and courage.
Well, absolutely. For one, that's when I really realized how broke the system was. Law enforcement, the chain. Somebody's going to see my overwhelming evidence, and they're going to side with me. I mean, I've got these guys recorded. I've got documents. I've got witnesses. There's no question that what I said happened. I was able to show multiple times in the depositions and in my due process appeal that I had no disciplinary actions at all until I had started speaking out against a quota. And looking at my stats, I was rated average or above average in every area, including tickets, until the chief of police came in with a new quota, and I started pushing back against it. But even then, I was not doing my job. I had, I think my lowest year I had 100-something tickets, and I think 4 days on, 4 days off, half the year, 111 tickets. A lot of time, I was also a bike patrol off and things. So, to hear the judge go one step further than what even the city was
I was going to be fired before all this came up. But the judge took it one step further and started making his own opinion and things that, well, it looks like you were out the door anyway, even before any of this came up. And I was like, even the city's not trying to claim that. They're just trying to claim that I broke the policies by recording them and disseminating this information. And, so it was just really, really heartbreaking and kind of makes you question justice system at all levels. Because I thought for sure once you get up to district level, out of that immediate, playing field of the city and the state that we had a chance. But it was pretty crushing to see how one-sided it was.
I mean, I read his decision completely, and it was very condescending. And then he kind of said,
Absolutely.
well, and even if you do have a case, you need to take it to the ethics, or you need to take it here. You need to go anywhere except here. Don't bother me anymore. And in terms of all your evidence, it doesn't really matter because you are a very bad police officer. You didn't do your job very well. And you know what? If you're saying they fired you for taping them and getting the evidence against them. And, well, I can't say that because if I say that, it'll look like I'm ignoring evidence and covering up. So I'm just going to say you're a very bad policeman. Get out of our lives. That's basically what he said, right?
That's the message I received with it. And the thing is, I had already gone to the Alabama Ethics Commission, the Attorney General, the federal EEOC, the district attorney, and anybody else that would listen, So, yeah, it was a lot of everybody trying to pass the buck to somebody else because nobody wanted to touch it because everybody benefits from it. The DAs in the state from the tickets and arrest revenue, and everybody plays a game. Everybody gets a little bit of money, and the system keeps on going. It doesn't
Let me ask you this, Justin. Do you think if you had a black district attorney and proof that the tickets were going overwhelmingly to black people and also to students who could barely afford, do you think that you would have had a different response? And let me tell you the context in which I say that. In Baltimore, where there's a very, 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 very rare person there. This is one of the only women black prosecutors in the whole United States of America. And she indicted 6 police officers, unbelievably, in the Freddie Gray case there. Also in Brooklyn, New York, you have a very rare person, a black prosecutor, who has quit arresting black people for small drug crimes, like one thing of crack or marijuana, little infractions. He's quit enforcing those kind of laws and focused on higher things. So in that context, do you think, and also I guess this goes for the other officers here, do you guys think that if we could jumble up the prosecutors a little bit and get them out of that? I noticed Mike Donovan in Tennessee, where the chief is a First Baptist church member, and that's the majority of the people in that town overwhelmingly. And he went to the University of Mississippi, the old boys university, and University of Mississippi is like, that's where they didn't want black people to come for the longest time. Do you think that if you didn't have these good old boys, Justin, in Auburn, do you think that it would be a difference in the way policemen perform their duties?
Well, absolutely. I think if you had somebody that wasn't, in the system ingrained and part of, like you said, the good old boy system, I think that, I've definitely presented more than enough evidence to illustrate that there was a big problem that something needed to change. But I said nobody wanted to address it. It would be great no matter what color they were, as long as they would be a person of character and integrity and that would police like we're supposed to be policed. Like you're saying with the war on drugs, all that's done is, lead to massive incarcerations, but it hasn't done anything to stop drugs. And one thing, you're talking about voting and stuff. One of the side effects of all these felony drug charges, like in Alabama, your second time caught with a personal amount of marijuana is a felony. If once charged with a felony, you lose your Second Amendment right. You lose your voting rights. We have 1.46 black men that are at the voting, age that have lost the right to vote out of the 10.4 million in this country. And so, you're institutionally with these felony charges, this war on drugs, you're taking away people's rights to protect themselves. You're taking away their rights to vote and have a voice in government, and you're marking them for life with a felony. So then it's harder for them to find gainful employment, and you're really leaving them with a little place to go, but back to crime. So, like I said, I think, one, if we can stop the war on drugs, and maybe we get more people voting, and maybe we can get people in, DA levels and judge levels and city council levels and mayor levels that that are beholden to the people and will take law enforcement.
Well,
back.
do you think? Is there any movement? I mean, this could come best from policemen. It seems to me, as we talk about solutions, if the police departments, knowing the stress you face because of these political hacks who have more power than you have, who've never carried a gun in their entire lives, they get elected by a bunch of schmucks, and they put on a badge and they say they're the chief law enforcement officer, and they call themselves general. I've never heard of such a thing in my life as an army man to call some schmuck district attorney a general. That is the most insulting thing I've ever heard. Why doesn't he have to wear a uniform? Send him to boot camp. Make him carry an M16. I'm fed up with this crap.
Listen,
I wouldn't call him a general. I call him a private. But let me say this. Why don't you guys go out there and do something reasonable? Have the police union, have your police associations endorse programs to the public that would limit a prosecutor's term in office to 4 years or 8 years. But after 8 years, he's got to go. Turn it over. These district attorneys and prosecutors who serve for 30 and 35 years in the same office have so much dirt. They have more dirt than all the Stasi files of East Germany and the KGB combined, and nobody will go against them. That's the problem. Why don't you guys do something?
Well, here, 1 second, guys. Let me just come in here 1 second before you answer, right? Because here comes the flatbed for you now. How on earth can we have confidence as individuals, whether we be black, poor, or Hispanic, right? When you guys who have had more opportunity, you have more access to the prosecutorial system than we will ever have, right? You have more evidence, you have more information that you can provide for the wrongdoings that you see going on in your departments and in your office, and you still can't get the hammer to move in your direction. What chance do the rest of us have?
That's an excellent question. That's where we're all at. It's one of those things where nobody wants to go against the thin blue line. So, I was one lone voice. I had every officer in that department behind my back at a lower level, and even in supervisory and admin levels that were supporting what I was doing. But, they kind of pin all their hopes on one person. And then what this, district judge basically did is very, flatly and point blank say, look, there's nothing that, they retaliated against you. But there's no remedy under law for that. They can do that if they want to. And so what they effectively told every officer in Alabama that works for a municipality or county is that, if you blow the whistle, you're going to lose their job. There's not a dang thing anybody can do to help you. And it was the same thing with the Ethics Commission and them. So, we have the information, and we can't fix the system with the system. We've tried that. So all we can do is what we're doing now, which is then it get to the public. And then the public has to get together and then elect people that'll from the top down do it at the same time. They push from the bottom up to, like I said, to change the system for the better, back to liberty, back to freedom, back to, taking power from the Gestapo and putting it back into the hands of the people, because it's by the consent of, the public do any government agency, even law enforcement, draw their authority. So, like I said, it's got to be a group effort from all levels. The black community, the white community, the police community have to get together. We're the majority all together. But if they can keep us divided and conquered along race lines or small political differences, then we're divided and conquered. We have to reach across the aisle. We have to be the change we want to see in our departments.
Absolutely, spot on. Now, hear this. Our good friend Charlie Graspy says one of his first charges was in Alabama, and he says that I'm to tell you, War Eagle, and you'll understand what the term means, right?
Yes.
How did he go back to Florida? How did you go back to Florida? A gator eater?
He's probably in Florida, sitting down listening. Well, go tell us about this.
War Eagle. It's not War Eagle. It's Chicken Hawk.
You guys have your own terminology.
I'm sorry. I'm a hardcore Roll Tide fan. 14 national victories. We're very happy Auburn has 2. We hope they come up to us one day.
Okay, now just
I am very sorry about your oak trees on Toomer's Corner. I'm sorry that schmuck who did that ought to have his butkas cut off.
Oh, you guys can keep that fight all to yourselves. But yeah, you're quite right, Justin. And Alex, are you still there?
Yes, I'm just here taking all of this in.
Again, you was one of the first people. You were the first to ever bring the police viewpoints to our shows and give us an understanding of the institutionalized racism and the total level of corruption within police forces, just to the manipulation of power and abuse of authority. So hearing what you've been hearing coming from Justin Powers and Justin Hanna's, knowing how long you've been doing this, how does this, the way that this show is exposing the lie, how is this sounding to you, and what would you like to contribute at this point?
Well, I'm just very grateful. I feel blessed. I think that there is a God that is listening to the people's cries now, that we're having this kind of discussion, because as we know, this isn't just an isolated problem. Institutional racism is a very real thing. We really, truly need to honor, Powers and Hanner's contributions, but also along with the numerous untold others, thousands of people who have come out before them to really talk and to put it all on the line, but only to be attacked, to be rebuffed, to have their characters assassinated. We saw what happened with Frank Serpico in the early 70s, where corruption was just a normal way of going to work. The police officers didn't go to arrest the bad guys. They were in cahoots with the bad guys. They were all on the take. And Serpico saw what was going on at that particular time, and it was kind of like the elephant in the room. Everybody knew what was going on, yet it took him to talk about what was the obvious, and then they had to look into it, of course, and then there was the attack on his life and him being left alone without any backup, him just trying to do what he wanted to do, and that was catch bad guys. And so, we really got to give kudos to these individuals. I'm very honored to say that I'm friends, and I know of over several hundred police officers like this now that have been reaching out to me also from all across the country. Got my great friend Joe Crystal out there, Sam Costales, Cheryl Dorsey, John. I mean, there's so many of them, people who are becoming well known now on the scene. That are discussing this phenomenon, which, a lot of people are like, well, what's going on? What are we going to do about it? And so what we're doing about it is we're doing it now, in the sense here that hopefully someone will listen to us and will take note that, hey, these guys don't sound like they're crazy. They're not anti-cop. They're trying to come out with solutions. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We don't hate the police. We know that a lot of our brothers and sisters that are wearing the uniforms there are good people, yet they're trapped. They are trapped by a system that doesn't allow them to go out and do what's right. And so until we recognize this, until we deal with this, and we look at it more from a humanistic point of view, because, again, we tend to get lost in all these statistics and things without looking at the core of what the problem is. And it's a human problem. And it's a human problem in the most technologically advanced time in the history of mankind. That we're trying to solve, which has been an old age problem that continues, on as we speak in the Middle East, where we're killing each other and children are washing up on our shores, and just really bad imagery, which is contributing to the hatred, to the anger, to us, trying to demolish ourselves once and for all. And so this is the world that our children are going to live in the future. We need to think about the children, because really that's what matters here. Are they going to grow up being traumatized, being afraid of these cyborg police officers who don't look at them as kids, as people who can actually make a difference, but as suspects, as thugs, as they like to say. So this mentality just needs to be changed. And again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to have a safe environment, because sometimes people want to attack us. And that's what most people will do, is they will attack the truth exposer, the one that's talking about the real issues, and say, oh, he's a disgruntled individual, employee. He couldn't measure up to what it was. But we saw the wickedness. We saw the twistedness. We were a part of it. And us coming forward and acknowledging it is what every police officer that wants to be a good cop needs to acknowledge, that they are susceptible to this type of training, mentality, insular culture, that does exist within law enforcement policing, and that if you're not careful, you can get caught up in it. You can end up shooting something based upon your biased feelings towards a person's color of their skin. And so these things constantly have to in the minds of police officers at roll call trainings, for example, or training days, not just where they're out there trying to kill people and practicing, okay, you're going to have a suspect that might come out, from the corner and shoot you, that type of thing, but rather, hey, these are people, yes, we can get killed. That's what we signed up here for. We truly want to serve the public. I mean, that's what we came on for here. When I got injured and beaten up and left for dead in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, I never knew that I would become a psychopath after that, angry and pissed off at the world. All I knew was that I wanted to truly protect and serve, but instead I became this wicked twist, unlike my counterparts here, because I was a mentally ill officer. I had developed severe PTSD, and the cowboy culture, take them out mentality had pervaded my mind when I became well enough to go back to work. And when I came, my partners, what was said to me? They said, "Why don't you shoot that MFer?" And I never wanted to kill anybody. I didn't sign up to become a killer cop. And I thank God again that I didn't have that opportunity to actually take a life. But I did use my weapon, when I felt that my life was in danger. Like the time, for example, I was working undercover and a person jumped out of nowhere and began shooting at me. I mean, it was literally one of those situations. But again, this is just amazing that we're having this dialogue. We need to continue it, and we need to get more police officers to come out. Most of all, I believe our president needs to come forward. We need to have that dialogue before he gets out of office, and so that's what I'm here praying for.
Listen, Alex, I'd like to say I know you as a very good person and sensitive person, and you're not and never have been and cannot be a psychopath. A psychopath, by definition, has no feelings for another human being. That's not you. You could have been angry or upset at the moment, but you're not a psychopath by any means.
David, I developed this mindset that became part of the Rampart scandal, okay, where what happened there, it was a division that developed a very high rate of psychopath or sociopathic behaviors. These people were putting cases on individuals like it was going out of style. And like I said, Denzel Washington played this part of a psychopath or sociopath or monster cop, whatever you want to call it, and he won Best Actor for his portrayal of it, which was based on an actual person that I work with, an individual by the name of Rafael Perez, who had shot a person and basically planted an AK-47 on him and testified against him in court for 2 years until he got up in with his hand in stealing cocaine from the evidence locker, and it all came out then. So there is this mental illness, this sickness here that people today, like this Walter Scott situation, where they can so easily plant a weapon on somebody and say they went for it, and that gives them the right to kill. And so that's what I'm about talking here about is this mental situation. And again, going back to Kelly Thomas, where this officer told a homeless, schizophrenic, 130-pound white man, these fists are going to F you up. And of course, he killed him.
Well, listen, that's absolutely a great update and analysis there, Alex. I want to direct the next question to Justin Powers, as former chief of police. I want to word this as correctly as I possibly can. So ears up. Are you with me? Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, in days gone by, police used to be known as a friend of the community. That's what in past generations knew local law enforcement officers or policemen to be, friends of the community, and they were always portrayed as friends of the community before this new generation of psycho cop came along. So if you had the opportunity to address either the president or the chief of chiefs, chief staff, whoever it was that laid down the law that governed the whole country, how would you go about restoring the trust and endearment of the local community officer to the community? What would be the first things that you'd seek to do, put in place, in order to represent that community-minded police officer, law enforcement officer?
First, I would get out and I'd start doing community policing. You see a lot of law enforcement officers nowadays that stay in their vehicle and they don't get out and do community policing. They don't walk the beat per se. One thing I did is I went to all the churches, the nonprofits, and all the local organizations and businesses, and I talked to them about policing and set up a neighborhood watch program. I think we also need to reinvent or look at the ethics of law enforcement in general. And another issue, too, is education. Not just the education of society, but the education of law enforcement officers. Most law enforcement officers, like in West Tennessee, with the exception of Memphis and Nashville Metro, only have to have a GED in order to be a law enforcement officer. When I was a police chief, I had a bachelor's degree. One of my other officers had a master's degree. The other one was working on his bachelor's degree, and the other one was working for FedEx for many, many years. So what I did is I wanted my officers to have the best education they could possibly have, because when you have a better educated law enforcement officer, they make wiser decisions than somebody that just has a GED. No offense against anybody that has a GED. I mean, I'm sure there's officers that have an education that make some very unwise decisions, but 9 times out of 10 in law enforcement, especially in my area, the ones that do have an education are less likely to violate people's civil rights, etc. So I would do that. And then I would also, we have to get back to the idea of, everybody says on the side of patrol cars that we protect and serve. Yes, we protect and serve, but we really actually protect the individuals, and we protect their property, the lives and the property of the individuals in which we serve. That's our community, our state, and our country. And we need to get back to the basics of that, the basic understanding of law enforcement and its principles. And we have to get away from this idea of quotas. And the reason a lot of the quotas have came about, like Justin Hanners was talking about, I posted the document from my old chief when I worked for Somerville Police Department. A lot of the reason for the quotas is everybody knows anytime you do any kind of budget analysis, law enforcement agencies, your public service agencies are always going to cost you money. The only ones that are really making money is either your water departments or your electric departments. But your actual budget for law enforcement agents or police officers are going to always cost you money. And that's the nit and gritty of it. But what has happened is in the 90s, when the economy was doing good, we had law enforcement officers writing several citations, and the city council members and everybody started realizing, hey, we can write X amount of citations and our budget's completely covered, and it's not costing the city or the taxpayer much money because we got all their salaries covered by the salaries of citations. And that is the general idea that they've carried over into the 2000 time frame, now into 2015 as well, is they think that they can cover the budget by just writing citations, and all they have become is glorified citation writers. When I was a child and I grew up in Chicago, we loved and respected our law enforcement officers, and we would never disrespect our law enforcement officers because we knew better, because our parents would take us home and whoop us with a belt if we did. And nowadays, too, it's not just society. Even in early 2000, when I was a military police officer, until now, and being a military police officer and a civilian law enforcement officer, children do not have respect for law enforcement officers as well, and it's because of the stuff they see on TV, and I can't necessarily blame them either. But we have to get back out, we have to get back to the fundamentals, and we have to get back out in the community, and we have to show the people that we're there for them.
Absolutely. One more question. I'm going to have that one for Justin Hanners. Justin, are you there, Justin?
I am.
Okay. I've been a support worker for the Salvation Army. I was a support worker for the Salvation Army for many years, working in particular with drug addicts, alcoholics, and the homeless, which is still a passion of mine. And for part of my training, I had to have a diploma in health and social care. I had to have a certificate in understanding mental health, and I also had to have a certificate in the protection and act of the vulnerable adults. Right. How much of this type of training is a police officer given before he goes out on the street, and how much would it help him in order for him to be able to tackle some of the individuals that he would actually meet when he was out on the street?
Very little. Most people don't realize, but the police academy is really all about officer safety and training and marksmanship and PPCT, your pressure point contacts control. For the 3 or 4 months, whatever that state's police academy extends, most of it is about that officer protecting himself and learning the combat skills and things. You might have, I think we had 2 weeks crash course in law, 1 week of federal, 1 week of state. And then you're done. You go back, you do your FTO program, where you learn that's your field training officer program back at your department, where you learn your beats, boundaries, you learn your 10 codes, you learn how to write a report and things, and then you're out on the street. So, what former Chief Power said is right on. We have working law enforcement models that are proven to reduce crime and build police and public relationship and build that social capital and that law enforcement used to have. But the only model of law enforcement that these young officers are coming in and seeing is the type of law enforcement that's being portrayed by the top folks that we're talking about, the stats-driven police work, about the taxation through citation, the revenue collection. So if they could have that training to understand the better, the better law enforcement models out there, to understand the principles of law enforcement, what works and what doesn't, then I think you can see a big shift. And like you're saying, dealing with the mentally ill or people with health issues. I had a guy, we got a call that he was passed out drunk on somebody's back porch. And, I went there and sure enough, there's this college age kid. He's laying face down on somebody's back porch. So I start thinking public intoxication, and I put him in the back of my car and I'm asking him questions like, what happened? Where you coming from? And he thought he was at his house, but he was very disoriented. And he just happened to mention something about he hadn't had his shot. So I started asking him if he's a diabetic. And he said, yeah, I'm a diabetic. I hadn't had it. So I called my supervisor. I'm like, hey, I don't think this guy's drunk. I think he's having a medical thing. And they were kind of grumbled and moaned. But I said, I'm going to take him to the ER, the East Alabama Medical Center. We took him there, and his blood sugar was spiked. They gave him a shot, and immediately he started sobering up. And his blood alcohol content was like 0.02 or something, where he had one beer. But they didn't want to let me drop the charges on him. I had to go above my supervisor's head, to the courts and to say, hey, look, I want to drop this charge. This was a medical issue, not a criminal issue and stuff. But it's just, a lot of officers wouldn't even called or even thought about it. They would just would have thrown him in a jail cell, said he's drunk, told him to shut up, and then he could have died in the cell from diabetic issues. So here's
the thing. Alex, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So, Alex, so then therefore, how can an officer be expected to deal with confidence and competence when facing an individual who could be either diabetic, epileptic, or suffering with mentally health-related issues, or just be a straight-out psychopath? How is an officer meant to be able to know how to deal with that circumstance when he meets with it if he's not being trained to deal with those issues?
Well, I think you just answered the question here. They're not trained properly to deal with these issues. They rather allow their personal emotions to get involved, as they did with the Kelly Thomas case, where the officer got mad with the schizophrenic man. And how are you going to get mad with someone that's sick, that's seeing things, and instead, he challenges this guy to fight, and that he's going to hurt him, is perhaps disrespect and most ignorant thing that you can possibly do in trying to help someone with this debilitating issue of schizophrenia. And schizophrenia has been attributed to many of the state sanctioned killings by police departments all over the country. Absolutely. Where you have someone that's having an episode or facing some kind of crazy demon, whether it be drugs, and the officer, feeds into that adrenaline, and he's like, okay, am I going to get a chance to shoot him, rather than having the mindset, oh, how can I help this sick person? What can I do? Rather than having the mindset, okay, my life can be taken at any given second. And granted, it can be. And there's so many scenarios out there really for the police officer today where some people do have to be killed. As I mentioned before, I've been involved in shootings where I had to use my weapon in South Central LA on someone who pulled a gun out at me and was actually firing at me. And so there's those situations which of course that render that use of deadly force. But today the mindset has changed. When in doubt, take them out. Better to be tried by 12 than to be carried by 6. And again, it goes back to this insular culture mindset where the officers are thinking, okay, we go home no matter what. But what does that mean, no matter what? That we got to frame somebody to be able to go home, that we got to lie about what really happened at this police shooting, as in the case of Walter Scott. I mean, what do you do? How far does this mentality go and extend to trying to subvert justice, to pervert it, and to make that officer, someone that doesn't have a soul, that doesn't feel for their common man, or much less the mentally ill? We really do have to look at it from that way, I believe.
I want to jump in.
One second, Dave. What I'm about to say is this. We've got about 6 minutes left, and we've got so much that we want to actually cover. I've already spoken to our producer. We're going to be doing a part 2 of this show. We need all of you guys available, okay? Because we ain't done with this yet. But, David, go on.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask more of a personal question now. I know that when I was serving my country in the Army, my greatest nightmare would have been to do something that would cause me to be discharged or forced to resign my commission in terms less than honorable. That I never wanted to do because it would bring shame on me and my family. Knowing you guys have acted in the best interest of justice and have had to pay the high price of dismissal under less than favorable circumstances, and your community, your families know that you've been, so I hate to use the word, but fired or dismissed, and the majority of the people always believe you're guilty, not the ones who fired you are guilty. You must have done something wrong or it wouldn't have happened. How have you dealt personally with this, and would you do it again? I'd like both of you to answer that.
Absolutely.
Sure. Go ahead, Chief.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd absolutely do it again. It is heartbreaking, don't get me wrong, because you feel as though your credibility is ruined. For a long time, I felt as though like the world's against you, per se. But then I realized there's a lot more people out there that are dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with. And I think that you just need to get out there and me personally, like I just prayed and I prayed to God, and, you know, God delivered me in the right direction. But, you know, it is very hard, though, I'm not going to lie, because you're going against the system. It's a difficult task. And a lot of law enforcement agents, you know, I absolutely loved and adored being a law enforcement officer. But after that, I can never be a cop again. Like, I can be a police officer. I'm sure somewhere will hire me. But I think I can do a better or a greater good in what I actually do now than I can as a law enforcement officer. So, I mean, but it is sad, though, because you are blackballed.
Okay, we're running into 3 minutes. The next one to answer. We've got 3 minutes left, guys. Who's going to answer next?
Justin.
Go ahead.
Sure. You know, if you're blackballed, you know, you lost it, but I do it again in a heartbeat. And the thing is, a lot of police have that bystander mentality where, you know, they see the problem, but they don't see them as a solution. And we mentioned Gestapo in World War II a lot, but I just kind of take the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer that to do nothing in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. And it doesn't matter what the consequences are. You don't need a reason to do the right thing. So no matter what it costs you, you got to do what's right. You know, if you're an officer wearing that badge, that's what you swore to do. You'll lay down your life for your officers on the street. You'll lay down your life for the citizens on the street. So, you know, you've got to be willing to lay down your job to improve the system, to stop victimizing the public and go back to protecting the servants. So the cost doesn't matter. It's just the action. That's the only thing that counts. So.
You know, personally, from my point of view, gentlemen, on behalf of World Jam Global Radio and Issues Today, and even though I'm not in America, I'll speak for the American people right here from the UK. I take my hat off to you three guys who stood for truth. In face of adversities and obstruction and you know, people condemning you and everything else, you guys have stood up for truth and are still standing speaking this truth today. And it's only because of the works that you guys are. I mean, a wise man once said, the only thing that allows evil to succeed is when good men stand around and do nothing. At least you guys are not standing around and doing nothing, and you're vociferous, you're active, you're supporting the cause, and in fact, from right where you're standing, you give the police a very good and sound name. You know, I look forward to the next show that we're going to do together, and I leave that entirely in my producer's hands. You guys make yourself available. We're going to do this again. I'm going to leave the last words with you, Dr. David Ramey, to just sum up what we've done so far on this particular show in the last minute.
It seems to me that we have encountered three very brave men who were willing to confront the systemic abuse in police power in the United States, forced upon lower-level officers and managers by political figures and those sworn to uphold the law in district attorneys' and prosecutors' offices with courage, determination, persistence, and a great deal of personal sacrifice. And were all of our policemen possessed of such integrity and honor, our nation would not have the problems it has today. So I thank them on behalf of World Jam Radio and my shotgun rider, Kervin, and I can't express my honor at having the opportunity to speak with each of you today.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, this is the end of the show tonight. I don't even have any time to play a closing track. We're done. We've taken up the whole time. I was also asked to extend the show, and I felt that it would be a cheap shot to extend the show because we probably ended up finishing it prematurely anyway. So I've asked Linda to arrange another date, and we're going to do this all over again. Not the same way, obviously, with new material, but